In this video, me and Paul C from WpTuts will share tips about starting a WordPress web design business. And in the last part of this three-part series, we'll talk about the importance of being visible as a web designer. Hello and welcome to the Digital Alchemist podcast. I'm your host, Casino from Casino.com. I'm the Digital Alchemist, and today is episode 3 of a 3-part series where me and Paul C will share tips about starting a WordPress web design business. So make sure to subscribe and smash the notification bell to get notified when new episodes come up, as well as new podcasts. Because yes, this format may become a regular show on the channel. And so, joining me today is Paul C from WpTuts. Let's talk about being visible. We've already talked about showcasing your work, but now I want to specifically talk about being visible. And there are various ways you can be visible as a web designer, web developer, freelancer. Of course, you could do Google Ads. You can try SEO. But I think nowadays, like what you're doing, what I'm doing, we often hear content is king, but honestly, now it has never been so true in my opinion. So when I see ads on the YouTube videos, it's great. We're on YouTube. YouTube is a platform where we can upload 4K content, great quality content, and we don't have to pay a dime. So ads is quite important for the whole ecosystem. But sometimes I keep seeing some ad where people are trying to push some stuff down my throat, and I feel like I don't want to hear what I want to talk about. I want to watch my video now. But when it's the right ad, then I'm interested. But what I'm trying to say is that I'd much rather trust someone I've watched hours. Like before we ever talked, you and me, Paul, I had watched a lot of your videos. And I think that's one of the strategies. Now, of course, not everybody's going to become a YouTuber because takes a lot of work, and maybe you're at a point in your life where you still have a day job and it's complicated. But there are other ways. Of course, you have YouTube, but you can create some podcasts. You could create a blog. You could, do digital case studies, like the example that Paul gave. If you create websites for restaurants, maybe you could break down, create digital case studies about what works for restaurants and what strategy you put in place. And at one point, people are going to know you. You're going to be the person that people go to, just like when people need dynamic stuff. When it comes to WordPress, WpTuts comes to mind. So I think it's one of the ways you can be visible today is to start creating content. And in my opinion, it's like a muscle. Sometimes it can be hard, especially when you're getting started. Sometimes it can be discouraging too because you put out a lot of content, but it's like a muscle. So the more you do it, the easier it gets. And like Paul talked about earlier on, you may end up getting some clients because they've seen you, they've watched your content or read your content, and then at one point they just want someone to do it. And who they're going to call? Not Ghostbusters, they're going to call you. So what's your take on this, Paul?
I totally agree. I think, there's a lot more to being in business these days because the competition is so prevalent. To become a freelancer, so many people are now working from their home office. It's become an accepted norm. When I started business, and this is something I'll be covering in a video that's releasing later on this week, you kind of thought like you had to have a business premises and all these kinds of trappings of showing that you're a real business. And I think that's totally different these days. When I moved away from having business premises to becoming a freelancer about 4 years ago, one of my biggest concerns was, would I lose clients because I don't have a premises anymore? Would I get less clients because I don't have a premises? And the reality of it is made zero difference. If anything, a lot of my clients and new clients like the fact that I now go to see them instead of them having to come and see me. So instead of them having to take 2 or 3 hours out of their day, they can come, they can sort of stay in their business environment. I'll see them. We have an hour meeting. They've got 2 hours back to work on their business. So I think anything you can do to give value, this is the thing we're going back to with the video settings. Yes, I've chosen video as my medium, but prior to all of this, way back when I was teaching, it all started out by me creating written content and putting that up online on a website that was just teaching people how to use Photoshop, how to use Dreamweaver, how to use, different tools like that. That was part of my day-to-day teaching, but I got fed up with them losing the handouts. So I made a website that they could just go to and get all that information. What did that do? It ended up getting like 1.5 million views a month. I was contacted by industry magazines like .NET Magazine, Digital Camera Magazine, Creative Arts magazines to create content for them. So just by giving, just by being someone that's willing to give in whatever medium you choose, whether that's video, like you say, whether that's blog, podcast, it could just be helping people out, saying, oh, look, I've got some skills in this and there's people that want to learn it. You just get a couple of like-minded people together and you just learn things together. That, in my opinion, is more important than Google Ads, more important than all those kinds of advertising mediums, because we are blind to it. Tell me the last time you looked on a Google search result and you looked at those first 4 or 5 results that all have the word ad in front of them. Or do you just go straight for the organic results? Because you think, well, they're just paying to be there. They've got the biggest budget. They're paying the most amount of money to be top of that list. And most people don't look at them. They're blind to those adverts. Same as YouTube, same as Facebook. We become blind to it. And I don't think in the web design industry, unless you have some really unique identifying factor that nobody else can supply, I generally don't think ads on something like Facebook and that really do give you a good return on your investment. Because when was the last time you got a job by an advert? When was the last time you got a job by someone suggesting they should take a look at your website, or someone that's seen your video and thought, this is the kind of person I'd like to work with, or someone's made a recommendation? I'll bet you get a better return on that investment than you do on your advertising online.
Yeah, I agree. And I would add that it depends also on the industry. In some industry, it's going to work if the target clients are not too web savvy, and they will probably not see it's an ad for some people. But if you're in industry like our industry, then in my opinion, ads do not work, because most of the people, they know how it works, they know how Google works. So yeah, you're right. People will look at the next results. I mean, just under the ads. But it's interesting what you just talked about, because once again, one of the clients I prefer working with, I would never have got that client through an ad or even through Google, to be honest, because it's a company that they don't go on Google. They're like 80 employees. I mean, the CEO is not going to go on Google and say, cheap web design. It's not how they do it. So what they did is they asked around, in the circle of influence, people they trust, can you recommend someone that could create our website that can deal with our digital side of stuff for our company? And that's how I got the referral. And it took many meetings before they actually started trusting me, because we had a good feeling, but I think they've been scammed before by some lousy so-called web designer, because nowadays everybody calls themselves web designer. And, sometimes it hurts us who are really doing this for a living with passion. And I actually talked to my client, and he never went on Google to look up someone. So once again, it depends where you live and the type of client that you want to reach. So in my opinion, I often talk about the business networks. And I know you mentioned earlier that where you live, it might be, a bit outdated, the people who go there. But once again, it depends where you live. Where I live, it's a bit of the contrary. It's a lot of young people that are getting into this. Why? Just because online is overcrowded. I mean, try to go on Upwork or Fiverr if you want. I don't want to go on those platforms, because to me, it's a race to the bottom. Not always, because some people are absolutely crushing it, but I tried a few years ago, but I didn't like what I read. I didn't like what I saw. And I always have this thing that when everybody's looking one way, I try to look the other way, because I'm trying to stand out. So I'm trying to look for the shortest way where I can have a result before I can actually expand. And I think one of the key points is that you should really craft a strategy, because we've been talking about various points, me and Paul, and depending on where you live, if you live in the UK, it's going to be different than if you live in Kenya or if you live in Australia. You need to really have a strategy for your market, and you need to know that that strategy is going to have to change probably in the next 2 to 3 years, because ever since I've been in that industry, things change so fast.
Absolutely. I think you need to be able to pivot very, very quickly. I mean, I don't imagine anybody thought we'd be in the middle of a global pandemic right now when 2020 started out. But, with that happening, businesses took a massive knock. So as a freelancer, you've got to be able to quickly pivot, look for other opportunities, look for ways that you can, support those businesses that you may have worked with long term. And, just everybody pull together and help. Again, it kind of goes back to that thing I keep saying, which is, if you help and support those clients that you have, you'll keep those clients and they will recommend you, because you think they're going to forget about the fact that you were there helping them when, this kind of situation really massively affected their business. Of course they will. If you were silent and you didn't have anything to do with them, that will leave a big impression. But if you're there helping them, down in the trenches, should we say, helping out when you can, not always for money there and then. If you turn and say, well, look, I know times are tight right now, so I'll do this for you and we'll defer any payment until things get back on their feet. Yes, you might take a short-term knock in your pocket, but that client will remember that help and support moving forward. And you will be the first person they would recommend to anybody because of what you did for them.
Exactly. It's funny because when I was preparing this show, for the audience, we just briefly exchanged some messages with Paul, and I suggested the topic because this is something I wanted to talk about. And we just put out the 3 points that you saw at the beginning of this stream. And actually, we have a lot of things in common, and I think it's a recurring thing when we talk. I think the experience we have, and not just us, sometimes I speak to people in the comments, and the more you've been in that industry, the more you come to the same conclusion. Now, it doesn't mean we always have to have the same idea, the same view on things, but there are some things that you just need the experience. And I think you need to enjoy the process, because I know for some people it's frustrating. They want to start and they want to have the money, the clients and everything, but it's a journey, it's a process. And I actually remember some of the stepstones I had to go through, and it's fun. So you really need to enjoy the journey. Just like now when we talk about Macromedia, Flash, or Dreamweaver, we laugh and it's funny, but at the time it wasn't that funny when you had to learn ActionScript and you had to go through countless bugs and everything was manual. But still, it's part of the process. So embrace that process today, whatever you learn, and know that you need to spend that time to become a better designer, developer, and know how it works. Now, if you're the Michael Jordan or the Kobe Bryant of web design, that's a different story. But if you're like most of us, most of the people, you would need to go through all of that. And it's actually fun. It's actually a good thing.
Yeah, you could be told all the pitfalls, all the things to look out for. But when you make those mistakes, when you have those learning experiences yourself, that's when they stick. We could sit here all day and recount stories over the last X amount of years of things to do, not to do, how to deal with different scenarios. But the reality is, when you have to go through that and you have to deal with it, that's when you'll walk away with skills and knowledge and experience. We can throw that out there, but I still think you've got to live it before you'll start to take everything out of it.
So Rich says, hey guys, can you talk a bit about how from going live the visitor amount will grow? Like how long will it take, site fully filled in with category, page, text, etc.?
One thing I would suggest, not knowing what kind of content they're talking about, so Rich, I don't know if you're talking about like creating a blog content, training content, or, something like that. if you are talking about that kind of thing, what I would suggest is making sure that you create content that interlinks to each other. And that way you get a natural progression. So when someone lands on the site, they may take a look at one page and then go on to the next page and another page, another topic, because it's kind of all interlinked. And that way, what you do is you're showing signs to, like Google, for example, that you've got information that they want to rank throughout your site. And you've got a better chance then of getting higher search results because you're creating clusters of related content that you can then interlink through to other pieces of content on your site. If it's kind of all over the place, it makes it more difficult probably to rank your information.
So I hope that you got value out of this, and don't forget, this was episode 3 of a 3-part series where we talk about starting a WordPress web design business. So make sure to subscribe and smash the notification bell so that you get notified when new podcast episodes come up. Oh, and by the way, make sure you check the WpTuts channel and you'll thank me later. Oh, and if you want a killer branding for you or your clients, I created a brand guidelines template that you can download on my website. Initially, it was created for Affinity Designer, but you can use it with Adobe Illustrator with a workaround. So if you're interested, just go to kesiner.com/branding. So thank you for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to invest
in your success.